How's it going, everybody? My name is Ged. This is Fabulous Flicks, and I am
Yeah, it is.
pumped to be joined by Mr. Tyler Urola, the Rogue Leader. How long have you and I talked about doing a Ring of Power chat?
The same conversation we had about doing House of the Dragon.
Yeah. This has been
for whatever reason, House of the Dragon was the one we ran with, and I think every 3 weeks I'm like, we should really do Ring of Power.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. There's only so many nights a week though you can schedule in this sort of stuff, right?
Yeah, and I know we want to talk about Ring of Power, and I'll let you lead on all that. But just in case I don't forget, I also want to kind of somewhere in here get in opinions of Ring of Power versus House of Dragon.
Oh, I'm into that. I like that play.
Okay.
All right. So I guess first things first. Overall, Ring of Power, first season's over.
Yeah.
What do you think? Yes, no. Did you like it? Did you not like it?
So as a disclaimer, or just, I know this show is extremely divisive amongst a lot of people.
Big time.
And I think the biggest area is the people who are the true Lord of the Ring lore experts who have consumed every book, have read everything. I kind of feel for them. I kind of feel like that's with me with Star Wars and a lot of things. Neither of us are that person.
No, that's fair.
Yeah. Right. Like
I loved Lord of the Rings for what it was. Like, it was a game changer for me when I started watching them in 1999. I was up in Thunder Bay. I mean, I've followed them cinematically, but it's true. I am not the person that has, read the books based on the background of this. Yeah, you're not wrong.
I used to watch the animated version of The Hobbit at my Nana's house as a small kid. I remember that. And then when Peter Jackson dropped that first trilogy, I loved it. I used to watch I don't know why. When I was younger, I kind of snubbed Fellowship. I would go back and rewatch Two Towers and Return of the King a lot.
Fair.
And then the Hobbit movies were good, but not as good as obviously the Lord of the Ring trilogy.
Yeah, agreed.
But I immensely enjoy them all. Like, if you want to say there's faults in them, they're cinematic. They're incredibly entertaining.
They're casted well.
They take you on an adventure. I love it. Love them. And that's my basis of it. So saying that, looking at Ring of Power, for me personally, I felt like I went back to Middle Earth. I really enjoyed myself. I found myself, even, if nothing was really happening, I was just, I don't know. I was into it.
Yeah. I think they did such a good job cinematically that.
Yeah.
And they did such a good job of telling so many stories at the same time. There's obviously the Galadriel and Halbrand story. There is this mysterious being that has fallen out of the sky that gets picked up by the Harfoots, which we now know as hobbits. Yeah. There was the elf and the humans. I mean, they did a really good job of just keeping the story going. And a lot of times, and I'm sure you'll probably agree, a lot of times when it comes to these big series that are coming out, these big shows that are coming out. Yeah. We oftentimes we've talked about filler episodes, and even some of our favorite series have always had a filler episode. And I think that happens when you're fixated on one or two stories. What I really, really liked about Ring of Power was that there really was no filler episode, because there was always a story to tell in one of the 4 or 5 sub-stories. There was always something. If nothing was happening with the dwarves and Galadriel, there was something going on with, the Harfoots and the wizard. You know what I mean? Like, there was always something to go around. And that's something that I really liked. I didn't love everything, of course, but that's something I really loved and thought they nailed.
Yeah, and something like you brought up, I didn't really know much about Numenor or anything like that at all. And whenever we got scenes there, I was like, wow, this is cool. This place is awesome. I want to learn more. I need to see more. But I could see as someone who's read the books and they consider themselves an expert on that particular city, and I could see them like, why they might judge things and stuff like that and how things play out. But for me, it's like, hey, like, this is a cool spot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let me
Yep.
learn more. Show me more.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, as someone who didn't read the books, obviously, I don't know a lot about the backgrounds of each ring. Obviously,
Yeah.
they are going to start going through in various seasons how each of the depictions get their rings of power. Like, but at the end, having it, being based on their survival, really put them in a very unique situation. So I love the fact that I learned that about the background of it.
Yep.
Tell me one thing you didn't like. Give me one thing, because I know we can be overly positive with the sort of stuff. Tell me
Yeah.
one thing that you were like, that's a swing and a miss.
This might seem like a weird one to like zero in on right away, but the thing that kind of bugged me was the fast travel. Like how long, like I feel like in the trilogy, how long it took for like the riders of Rohan to like just ride their horses across the plains. You know what I mean? I feel like,
You feel like Numenor got to the
when
Southlands real
Numenor
fast.
shows when they show up to save everyone from Adar and the orcs, it's like, we just saw you 5 minutes ago, like in boats, and
Yeah, you
you've
could
now,
barely see land.
yeah, you have
Mhm.
landed your boats, and not only you have like launched the cavalry, and you have zeroed in exactly where you need to go at the right time. Like some of that was just, I don't know, it was just a little too convenient, I guess, and that was my same problem with the last two seasons of Game of Thrones. Right, like everything just got sped up, and like
Yeah.
it's weird in Ring of Power. Like a lot of the scenes and stuff are very slow and nuanced, and slow burn and bring up development. And then they have scenes like that's just completely, I find, just rushed. Like just immediately
Yeah.
characters here, characters there. And I get it. Like I guess some people, you don't really want to see the travel and like waste your time with that. But when the rest of the show kind of indicates or says that's how it's going, it's a little jarring sometimes how quick some things happen. That I think that was off the top of my head. That's my main probably complaint with season one. How
Yeah,
about you?
I after they barricade in the orcs and Adar in the tower, the fact that they know they're going to come down the hill in this one spot, to me, I was like, okay, are they though? Like,
Yeah.
it's not like they're at the bottom of the road from the castle. Like, oh, they're going to come down this grass field, and once they all happen to walk across the bridge, that's when we're gonna confine them in. It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
they could have taken a 15-minute detour and flanked you. Like,
there's definitely some silly elements to
mm-hmm,
the story.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think both things we mentioned are kind of minor that you could
Yeah.
easily
Oh God,
ignore.
yeah, of course.
Yeah, and I think
And
one of my other ones too is I enjoyed a lot of like the so-called new characters, right?
mm-hmm.
And in the finale, which I thought was great, but like it didn't even show us half the squads. You know what I mean? They just like poor Isildur, man. That guy got left in that burning house,
Yeah,
and everyone, and like
he's
he's the
still
one
around.
name everyone knows. He doesn't die because he cuts the rings off the fingers,
Yeah.
and his dad, his best friend, they all just leave him there. And then there's like that was the second last episode, and then there's not even anything in the last finale. Like there's nothing about what happened to Isildur, which I thought was a bit of a misstep.
It's funny because I disagree with you
Do you? Yeah.
completely.
Okay. Let's hear it.
Because there are 3 for the elves, there are 9 for men, and there are 6 for the dwarf lords. 6,
I
7?
can't remember.
I
It
forget.
was a lot. Yeah.
My guess is they left him out there unfounded because Halbrand, who we can just call Sauron now,
Yep.
is going to find Isildur. He's going to befriend Isildur. Like, obviously, I mean, we didn't know that there was a borderline romance between Halbrand and Galadriel, which makes sense as to why she's the way that she is during the actual trilogy.
Yeah.
But I think you see a kinship, a bond between Isildur and Sauron, who's going to disguise himself as Halbrand, because they never cross paths.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see this show depict how these were obviously all put together, which makes sense based on the title.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that they left that character out so that he could be the focus of next season.
Yeah, I could see that because Isildur is trapped in Mordor. I guess is what we're calling it now, right? It's not the
Yeah,
Southlands
yeah. It
anymore.
officially changed in 6 or
Yeah.
7. Yeah.
And then so sticking with the finale,
Mm-hmm.
again, I watched some lore videos just to see what people were saying. And again, anyone feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the complaints was, Sauron takes the form of Anatar. Is that the name? Who influences or creates all the rings. And in this version of the story, we have Halbrand who influences the creation of the 3 elving rings and then
Mm-hmm.
gets found out and leaves. So it's like, is Sauron going to change his form again and try to go make more rings for everybody, or like influence
That's
that
kind of my
process?
thought. Yeah, I
Or is
think you're
he
gonna
just,
see.
or are
Yeah.
they going to change it up and Celebringbor is going to be the one who just keeps pounding out rings? I don't know.
No, no, I don't think so because those rings should only be touched by elven hands.
Yeah.
But I think that could be the formula that he's going to take on different forms. You're gonna
He
have to
is the
figure out
master
each.
at
Yeah.
deceiving and disguise and all that, the
Mm-hmm.
shapeshifter. So I guess he could easily do it. Do you think that the actor who played Halbrand, do you think that will continue to be the physical representation of Sauron in the show? Or do you
I
think
think
that he's going to get recast as he kind of shapeshifts his way
I think he's going to
through
get
the
recast.
seasons? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. No, I do. Shoot, I had something on the tip of my tongue, and now I have completely and utterly forgot what I was going to ask. Oh, can we touch on this stupid? I know we probably aren't going to touch on it much, but like the whole elves thing and dwarf thing, like can we just put that to bed that it really doesn't matter what the physical appearance of an elf or a dwarf is? Like, is that okay, or do we
Yeah.
have to hash this out a little bit?
Nah, I think it's stupid to let that potentially ruin a show for you. Like,
Yeah.
tell me why, story wise and plot wise, why you don't like it. I don't care if a character looks a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, it did nothing to change the story
Yeah,
at all. I mean, to be honest, like you and I talked about it off camera after a House of the Dragon. When you pointed it out, I was like, oh yeah, all the elves aren't blonde hair, blue eye, white guys. I'm like,
yeah.
yeah,
I actually like the new elf they created.
me too. He was awesome. He was
Yeah.
absolutely awesome. Yeah, it did change nothing to the story. I know people want to hang their hat on this stuff that it's getting extreme, and sometimes there are good executions of these things. Sometimes there are not. You and I have talked about it in terms of having strong female characters. I think it was written
Yeah.
beautifully. Again, it didn't even seem like a thing until I read about it online and you and I talked about it.
Do you how do you feel about the other thing, the other negative sentiment online about Galadriel is she was supposed to be this powerful being but was more sorcerer and stuff like that, was never really apparently depicted as like a strong warrior sword swinging person. Did
Mm-hmm.
that bother you that they chose to take that direction with their character and basically place her as the center star of the show?
No, I think that what's going to happen between now and the trilogy will change who she is as a character. I liked her as a warrior. I think it fit with the fact that Halbrand was able to dominate her so much magically at the end.
Yeah.
If she had powers, if she was more sorcerer like, obviously that would not have happened. So I think this is just going to shape who she becomes in the next little while.
And I 100% agree. Like if she truly is supposed to be one of the most powerful beings, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, then why can't she be strong as a warrior as
I
well? Like
agree. I thought her
it's
character was
yeah,
wicked. I loved how stubborn she was. I loved how impolite she was.
yeah.
There's the doggy behind
Yeah,
me.
she was really mission like mission driven. Like she's just blind with rage for
Big time.
getting Sauron, and no one else believes her that he's out there, and she could
Hmm.
really give two shits about what anyone else thinks.
And then she borderline falls in love with him.
Yeah,
The poetry there is
yeah.
beautiful. Okay, the wizard. I'm going to assume that this is Gandalf the Grey.
Yeah,
The
the
love of the
nose
halflings, the
the
follow your
nose line.
nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a
The
great drop
halflings, I
at
think,
the
was
end.
the major clue because other like Saruman didn't even know hobbits existed, right? And
Yep.
Gandalf was always an ally, so that makes sense. The nose line, I think, all but guarantees it. I was always secretly hoping it was like I know lots of people say the Blue Wizards. I was always hoping it was gonna be Saruman, like before he was like doing acting,
Mm-hmm.
for Sauron.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's if it's Gandalf, it's fine. I heard an interesting theory that because again, some people have issue with Gandalf because he's not supposed to appear yet, like in this age.
Ah.
So since he's back early, people think it's potentially again. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just going on what I've read and heard.
Well, I
Um,
mean, is this Gandalf the Gray? Is it supposed to be here early? Like Gandalf the Gray becomes
yeah,
Gandalf the White. Is he Gandalf the Brown at this point? Like,
yeah. But like, so he's going to Rune, and apparently Rune's in the east. So the one theory I heard is maybe he's been sent back because the Blue Wizards who they sent have disappeared, and they went east. So
got it.
he's been sent to investigate what happened to the Blues, and if that happens, I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
It'd be nice to get a better backstory of the Brown Wizards, the Blue
yeah,
Wizards, and how that all came about.
yeah.
And I hope that theory you read is
Yeah, because it
absolutely
doesn't
correct.
feel like he's there to fight Sauron. Like that doesn't
No.
seem like it. I don't feel like that's like an issue for the realm really at the
Mm-hmm.
moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think yeah, and like his. I mean, I like that they never ever actually revealed his name. They
Yep.
left enough clues for it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the line where he like grabs the staff and like kills the whites or turns them into whites, whatever the heck what happened
Mm-hmm.
there. But when he yells, "I'm good." I was like, oh, that's a little cheesy. That was a little cheese.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that definitely would be something that I didn't
Yeah.
necessarily love, but he is still
He
figuring out
he
the
did not need to
language.
yell anything there. He could have just made an audible sound.
Yeah,
And
just give me a
it's
grunt.
it's almost like in Return of the Jedi when Vader picks up Palpatine and throws him in the reactor. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
say anything when George Lucas went back and tinkered with it. He made Darth Vader yell no. I was like, oh man, you just ruined it by making him yell. It was so much better when he was just
Should have
cold
just
blooded.
left it alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah!
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, so I guess from here I kind of depicted where I think it's gonna go next season. I think you're gonna see the nine humans
Yeah.
destined to die have their rings forged. Do you agree? Do you think they're going somewhere else with it? Do you think they're gonna stay with the elves? What do you see season two doing?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be rings, 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 right? Like they gotta start making more rings. And then we gotta see, Sauron plant the seeds, do his maneuvering to
Yep.
eventually make the one ring
Yep.
to rule them all, right? So I
Yeah.
think we'll see a lot of that. And I think we'll see a lot of Mordor building up, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to see what happens with the dwarves because um again, sorry, I can't remember the location, but they eventually dig too far down and the Balrog gets
Yep.
unleashed, right?
And that's
And
referenced obviously in the Fellowship of the Rings.
yeah, and we see they show us a little teaser of it as well, right? So
Yep.
that's going to happen sometime. So they're setting up some like potentially some really cool disastrous events that's going to befall Middle Earth, and then I'm assuming Numenor is going to get wiped out as well.
Yep.
The visions of the wave coming through, like that's probably going to come to pass, I believe.
I would think so.
Yeah. So I think if they, what, it's like, it's almost like this whole first season just kind of, it's almost like a table setter. Like, listen, here's the characters. We're going to move them around a little bit. We're going to introduce you who they are. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to kind of set up with the direction we're going to go. And then season 2 is when we're really going to start the show, start the series.
Yep.
But I was in for it for season 1 though. I
Yeah, it is such a good
enjoyed it.
job.
And
And my
visually,
and my
what do you think
favorite
of the?
Halbrand, I
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
hope he is back. Obviously, like I
Yeah,
really enjoyed the actor. Please, anyone who watches this, don't take that as I didn't like the portrayal of Halbrand. I thought it was amazing.
Yeah.
It just as Sauron's a shapeshifter, it makes sense for him to shift based on the situation, right?
Yeah.
So are you going
Yeah.
to go into visuals now?
Yeah. Like, what did you? So a lot has been made of the budget for the show and how much went into VFX and stuff like that.
What
What
budget?
did? Yeah. So you are the AV guy. So let me know what you thought.
Um, from an AV perspective, I thought it was beautiful for a couple reasons specifically. The 4K HDR in it I found was not oversaturated. I think it's
Yeah.
very easy right now for directors, producers, the AV crew, especially for a series that it has so much landscape, that has so much different cinematography. It's easy to oversaturate the shit out of colors. It's easier
Yeah.
to overexpose. What I thought they did odd or visually really well is they did a good job playing with cooler and warmer temperatures. Obviously, Mordor, and when things are getting bad, like when the fruit is touched, um, they do a good job of really cooling the color temperature. It reminds me a lot of the original release of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, where that
Yeah.
first movie was very cold in terms of temperatures and then got warmer as it went on. Obviously, Peter Jackson changed that a little bit when the remaster was done, which was perfect. I have a review on that, and it is you please go watch it. It is like 8 minutes long, and it's a pretty solid review. Um, but from a visual perspective, that's what I really enjoyed about it. They took all of that landscape, they took all of that colors, and they saturated it properly. When things
Yeah.
got bad, they cooled it down properly. They didn't keep it super, super warm. And from an audio perspective, obviously it was depicted in full Atmos, which is wonderful because heights around, so the theater room really worked well. But what they did better than some other series I've watched is they kept vocals front and center. When you have shows like non-disc products or anything you stream, when
Yep.
you have them do a lot of this like very advanced audio work, sometimes the surround effects and the overproduction of bass and low frequency will drown out vocals, especially when vocals aren't part of the main conversation. There were a lot of very complicated audio tracks in this series, specifically when it comes to Adair raiding the village and getting the troops riled up. I mean, there's so many, but
Yep.
they did a really good job of making sure that vocals stayed front and center because there's nothing more frustrating than watching something that you have to turn up in a quiet moment, or you have to turn up when there's a lot of ambient noise going on so you can hear what's being said, or you got to turn on the actual closed caption. They did a really good job vocally. I know that's super nerdy and super specific, but it's so important for those of us that have a bit of a theater setup that vocals remained really strong and true.
Awesome stuff.
There's my super geek out for the moment. They did a
I
really good
don't.
job not
Yeah.
muddying frequency in that yucky like 70 to 110 range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to this. Maybe you do. Were all a lot of these sets completely digital, or did they go to like New Zealand and stuff like that and film where the originals were?
That is a good question. I believe based on budget that there was a fair amount of on-set stuff. I could be completely wrong. So if anyone sees this that knows the answer more so, then please jump in.
Yeah. But yeah,
I'm not
my
sure.
guess is more CGI than actual like location shooting. But I'd
Hmm.
be curious just because I know the cinematography in the Lord of the Rings trilogy was famous for like all those gorgeous shots, on
Yep.
location. I just don't know if they actually went back there or if they just said, you know what? We got the budget. We'll just make
Yep.
it happen with our computers.
Yep.
What did you think about the music of the show? Because it is composed by none other than Bear McCreary, who is the lovely Battlestar Galactica composer, the Walking Dead composer. Really, Bear is one of the top guys in the industry now as far as fantasy sci-fi shows. Like he pretty much does all the big ones now. And again, his biggest breakout was the Battlestar score, and then from there he's become a boss, man.
I liked it because he played the moods really well. because he was telling 4 or 5 stories at the same time. There are times where there's excitement. There are times that there's beauty. There's time that there's death and despair and cooler temperature video. And I thought he absolutely hit a home run with it. I did not realize it was that producer of music. I mean, what did you think?
No, I love anything Bear McCreary does, so I was
Yeah.
on board. Loved
Yeah,
it.
he nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he nailed it. All right. Anything else? Anything else you want to touch on? I don't want this to drag on too long, but I really kind of wanted to go over some of our thoughts, a couple of things we didn't like. I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say that overall we both loved
We're
the series.
positive on this, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess my biggest question is, it's obviously airing the same time as House of Dragon.
Yeah.
If you could only have one, what show are you watching?
I might need a moment because I'm assuming you have the answer here. So
My answer is kind of weird. I think that I'll probably, and again, I don't know if we're going to give this a score or not, but I'm likely going to rate House of Dragon higher, but I'd probably rather watch Ring of Power, if that makes any sense.
I think it does because you can watch Ring. It's so beautiful cinematically that
Yeah.
you can watch it. You could just have it on.
I feel I'm just more attracted to the Lord of the Rings universe at this current state than I am the Game of Thrones one. Again, this is nothing against House of Dragon. I will rate it. It's been rated
100%.
higher.
Yeah.
Like you and me give it outstanding ratings. I love it. I just personally, I would rather sit with Ring of Power and hope it gets absolutely epic.
Yeah,
You know what
so
I mean?
I agree with you. I would rather
Yeah.
watch Ring of Power. I mean, I have the 4K box set of Game of Thrones. I have the 4K box sets of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
Yeah.
I just opened the Lord of the Rings box just this weekend, but I've watched I just opened
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones
Yeah.
this weekend, but I've watched Lord of the Rings property stuff multiple times. So yes, I mean,
Yeah.
if I'm going to go downstairs and rewatch something because it's beautiful, I'm going to watch The Ring of Power. But I agree, the House of the Dragon is just so goddamn intense.
Yeah, and House of
Yeah.
Dragon, like I said, will get higher ratings from me,
Mhm.
probably you as well. It's just there's just a certain, I don't know what it is. There's just a certain feeling about Middle Earth versus Westeros that
Yep.
don't get me wrong. When Game of Thrones was first airing, it was like I was obsessed with everything.
For
But
sure.
it's just, I don't know. I can't, I don't know.
You
Just
know,
can't explain it.
I think I know why. It's harder to watch. Game of
Maybe,
Thrones, The House of the
yeah.
Dragon is amazing. But my wife Stacy talks about this a lot. Something can be really good, but really stressful to digest, really
Yeah.
hard to watch. I'm very slowly going through that Chris Pratt series that's on TV right now
Oh yeah,
on Prime.
that's a tough watch too. It's
And
good.
it's really
it's a
good, but
tough
it's
tough
stressful
material.
to
Yeah,
watch. Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah. I see
I
what you're
find
saying.
that about Lord of the Rings, House of the Dragon. Like you got to gear up emotionally to watch that. There's no
Yeah,
release in it. Like you need to mentally prep. So yeah, I think that makes perfect sense.
yeah. But yeah, great. I think two great shows. Either
Yeah.
way, like we talked about it before, we've kind of been spoiled with the amount of
Oh my God.
great television that's been on.
Such great content. Well, I think that about does it. Do we want to give the series an overall
Let's give it a
score?
score. Let's give it
All
a
right.
score.
All right. What do you give this series? Overall score, season
Overall,
1.
across the entire series, you know what? I'll give it an 8.1. I think that's where I'm at.
Okay.
Like I said, it's lower than my House of Dragon scores, but 8.1 is still a great score from me. But I think there's lots of room for improvement.
I'm going to give it 8.5.
Yep.
And I'm going to give it 8.5 for it's not that it's not worth a 9,
Yeah.
but I think they did such an incredible job, and we are very tough graders. I think they did such a beautiful job telling so many stories and filling what would be downtime or filler episodes with great content from the other story. So
Yeah.
to me, it's an absolute 8.5. I think they hit on so many things, from audio to visual to the way they told the stories to maybe even, much as I might get some slack for it, the way they changed some of the lore.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I
Again,
thought it flowed really, really
for
well,
someone like
right?
me, like I don't know any different. Like whatever they're showing me, I'm like, oh yeah, that's how it always went.
100%. Yep.
Are you kind of kicking yourself? I think we got to wait 2 years for season 2. Is that true? Do you know that?
Christ. I mean, it makes sense.
Let me just, before we sign off, let me
Yeah,
just give a
when
little
is
look see here for the people.
Ring of Power?
Yeah, it
Season 2.
will not land in 2023. So
Wow.
2024.
First quarter 2024 at the earliest.
Yeah. That's a long
That's tough.
time to wait between seasons. Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough.
That's not going to work in their favor, but
That's okay. It just means but let's be honest, I'll probably rewatch it. I liked it enough that I will rewatch this.
yeah, I'll probably rewatch it when we get closer to season 2.
Yeah.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it. Great
Yep.
scores, great series. Glad we did this. It was neat doing just a series wrap up, because there were a lot of stories, man. Those could have been really long segments each week.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just, we're not nerdy lore. I'm just consuming it and I'm letting you know what I thought. My just overall opinion. So
yeah, absolutely.
take it or leave it.
All right. I will see you tomorrow for Andor.
Yeah.
On
Sounds
your
good,
channel.
buddy.
Thanks,
Yeah.
man.